Good morning. Well, for the most part, I feel really good today. I read some of your comments after I did the live video yesterday. It's such a weird process. Maybe there was some way to refine it, but even though I know you're commenting and kind of speaking to me during the time that I'm either talking or playing, I don't get to see it until afterwards. But nevertheless, I appreciate the comments very much. I appreciate the suggestions or requests. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. I got one or two that I can do today. And hope you're feeling good. I just have to emphasize that I don't like this loneliness concept here, but it's the best for me anyway in terms of my health. I have lots of support. My family, for the most part, lives out of town. My daughter and granddaughter live in Canton, Ohio. So I got really nice friends there who've been watching. That would be daughter Hillary and granddaughter Ava and Hillary's husband Kevin, my son-in-law. But also some other friends in Canton that have been making comments and contributions. Ed Wilhelm, engineer, good friend of Kevin's, who is also a good friend and has helped out with a lot of our recordings down there. Nancy Youngdara, who's a great friend of Hillary's, and she's made lots of nice comments. Hi to you. And gee whiz, my sister Katie is out in California. Either that or I'm not sure whether she's back from Hawaii yet. They were going to escape out to Hawaii for a while, but they're probably hunkered down like the rest of us, staying away from big crowds. So I'm persevering with the loneliness, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how, when I look back at my career, and I'm doing a lot of looking back these days. When you're by yourself, you reflect a lot. At least I do. And I've had so many good times in my life, so many wonderful opportunities. But it strikes me very significantly that my best successes have been collaborations with other artists. And of course, many of you know me from my work from the group Foreplay and Harvey Mason and Nathan East, and then our three different guitarists, Lee Ritenour, Larry Carlton, and Chuck Loeb, were a major part of my life, and collaborating with them was always very fun and exciting. But possibly the achievements that demonstrate the collaboration part the most dramatically are the two recordings that I made. Well, I actually made 3 recordings with the amazing guitarist Earl Klugh. And Earl has remained a very, very dear friend, along with his wife Denise. They live now in Atlanta. But going back into 1970s, just about 1978, I think, the great legendary producer Bruce Lundvall brought Earl Klugh and I together. I was recording for Columbia at that time, and Bruce Lundvall had previously been the president of Blue Note Records and had signed Earl Klugh to that label. But the intricacies and the complexities of trying to put 2 artists together who had exclusive contracts with 2 different labels was quite a bit to overcome. But Bruce was in the unique position to be able to do it, and he suggested that Earl and I do a collaboration album, which resulted in a record called One on One. And on that record, very significant contributions by one of the Foreplay members, Harvey Mason, playing drums. There was Gary King on bass. My friend Doc Gibbs played some percussion. I think he did, although Doc, maybe you came along a little bit later. That might have been Ralph McDonald at that time. I have to go back and look at my liner notes. Some of the memories are a little blurry at this point, but anyway, this record proved to be so significant in many, many ways. I learned from Earl what it was like to just let the music flow naturally. Some of the music that I've been trying to make seemed difficult to me and complicated and hard to pull off. But the minute that I got into the studio with Earl, he just played and melodies flowed out of him, solos flowed, and as long as we had the rhythm section going and Harvey was taking care of that, this very immediately accessible music kind of flowed out. And I can still remember how it changed my attitude about playing and arranging and everything. So I thought it would be appropriate to play something for you today. I'm going to play probably the most recognizable, the tune that got the most airplay was one of Earl's compositions called Carrie. And I don't know the story about this lady Carrie, that maybe you'd have to find that out from Earl's camp. But it's a gorgeous melody. And so I'll play a little bit of it for you, and maybe it will inspire you to go find that one-on-one record, and hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Earl, for that beautiful, beautiful song. I never get tired of either listening to it or playing it. It's really fun. I've had a few chances in recent years to go back and join up with Earl on tour. We played together at this great festival that Earl hosts at Broadmoor in Colorado, and all of them are very fond memories. But I guess I have the opportunity to boast, brag out a little bit, because one of the other fantastic memories that I can demonstrate specifically to you was that we won Grammy Award for that record, my first of only two that I've won, and I just happen to have the trophy here in my studio. I'm gonna go get it and show it to you. Da-da-da, da-da-da. This is a fact check. So this is not fake news. We got it, and I'm proud of it. Goes back a long time, 1980. So I guess when we recorded this was 1979, maybe I said 1978. But nevertheless, it's a great memory. Put it right here. I just learned that there's a very wonderful coincidence. And I just learned this from a good friend about 10 minutes ago who messaged me to say that she hopes that I would be inspired by knowing that today is Johann Sebastian Bach's 335th birthday, 335, which is a weird number anyway, because that number 335 also is the legendary number of Larry Carlton's guitar. They even call Larry Mr. 335. But this is a different version of that number, because Bach happens to be my biggest inspiration from the classical world. I never get tired of trying to learn from him and even trying to play his music sometimes. And even though the standards of performance with Bach are so high that usually I just try to avoid it, because I know that I could never play Bach in the same way that I hear the great geniuses, such as Glenn Gould, who's always been my favorite interpreter of Bach. But there are many, many more. I love the choral music. I love all of his music. But going way back in my life, I'm kind of wondering what some of you were doing in the year 1956. And I'm guessing that maybe most of you weren't even around at that time. But I don't want you to do the math on this, but I was about 16 years old at that time, taking piano lessons from a wonderful piano teacher named Franklin Launer, who taught at a college in Columbia, Missouri, Christian college. And at that time I was living in my hometown of Marshall, which was about 60 miles from where this college was located. So my mother had arranged for me to take a bus over to Columbia, and actually my father and my sister had both gone to school at the University of Missouri in that same town. But during my junior and senior year of high school, I took piano lessons in Columbia by going by myself on a big Greyhound bus from Marshall over to Columbia, so that I could take a 1-hour piano lesson with this great piano teacher. And he was teaching me the fundamentals. And the other day, as I was kind of looking for material, I came across an old booklet of music by Bach that I was studying at that time. And there was a fugue in the key of A minor that was not one of Bach's most famous fugues. In fact, it was a little bit questionable about the authorship by some people, whether this was actually his composition, but I'm pretty sure it was. And anyway, I was working on it at that time, not playing it well, but learning about counterpoint and learning about the idea of how fugues have this same melody that keeps coming up in different voices. And it affected my life very much. And when I went back to start playing it the other day, it was amazing to me that even after so many years, more than 50, being away from this piece, I felt that my fingers still had some memory of it, and it made me want to play it again. And in some ways, I kind of felt like 16 years old, and tried to remember what it was like having that experience of playing Bach's music. So here we are on Bach's birthday today, and I would like to give you a somewhat rough but heartfelt rendition of this fugue for 4 voices in A minor by Johann Sebastian Bach. ago memories, and what an amazing composer. Have to take a little breather because I have one more piece I'd like to play for you today. It's a response to one of the requests that I got, and it also has to do with being alone, and somewhat has to do with today's circumstances where we're separated from each other in some form of isolation or quarantine. A few years ago, I was asked by a great Japanese producer to do a solo piano album, which I had never done, a complete solo record. And I was intimidated by it, but also felt the challenge of trying to do it. And this producer is Yasuhachi Ito, whose nickname was 88, which was also the translation of his first name. He inspired me a lot to do this. But in my memory of going over there just by myself, not with a group and none of my buddies, and all of the staff, the producer and the engineers were all Japanese, most of whom were speaking either minimum or no English. So there was definitely a feeling of loneliness when I was in this Sony recording studios in Tokyo for, I think it was 3 or 4 days of all-day recording. And I don't think I ever felt more alone in my life as a musician than I did on those sessions, because I was waiting for reaction, and all of the staff, including 88, the producer, were being very respectful of me, and they didn't feel that they wanted to volunteer to make any comments about my performances. So I would finish a take, and on some of them I thought I was doing pretty good, and this studio was really big. It was a big performance room, and this 9-foot concert grand was right out in the middle of the room, and when I would finish I had to take this long walk into the control room to find out how I had done. And when I got in there, very respectful kind of silence, because they were concentrating on the technical stuff, the audio and everything else, and they were just sort of looking at me, would I like to do another take, but no reference to whether it was good, bad, or anything in between. So I had to figure all of that out and make all those decisions for myself. So it was not the most fun type of project, but it was definitely very challenging, and I had no place to hide because it was just the piano. There was no backing track, there was no vocals, no brass, no strings, nothing else, just the piano. This record, not coincidentally, ended up being called Alone. And I did some originals, but mostly my interpretation of standards. And one of them that I'm going to play for you today to end our session is called, I think appropriately, I Can't Give You Anything But Love. listening this morning. I'll try to do better tomorrow. Too many mistakes today. But it's a fun challenge to try to do it, and it's wonderful to feel like there are lots of you out there joining me. And I'll look forward to seeing your comments and hope to see you tomorrow.